Welcome you to the Fireside Chat here at the Aspen Institute Aspen Environment Forum. This is the most fascinating panel, and I'm so pleased you came downstairs to join us this evening. My name is Peggy Clark. I'm the Vice President of Policy Programs at the Aspen Institute and the Executive Director of Aspen Global Health and Development. We actually are going to have a fire down here, and they are working on it. And it is coming, so just be patient. But I want to tell you we have the most extraordinary panel. We have some of the leading youth activists from South Central LA, from India, from Kingston, Jamaica, from South Africa, from Washington, D.C. And these folks who are here may present a different picture than the one we heard from the elders in the environmental community just a few minutes ago. So I think you'll be pleased, and hopefully you'll see Phumzile, who is our moderator, told them that they can do anything except burn down the house. So we told them. But I'm really delighted to introduce our moderator, who's become a very dear friend. She's an activist, she's a scholar, she's a friend, she's a leader for people all over the world. Phumzile Mlambo-Ncguka, I'm trying to say it right, we've been taking lessons still, was Deputy President of South Africa from 2005 to 2008. She was the first woman to hold the position, and she's the highest ranking position of a woman in the history of South Africa. Her passion is youth. She has a wonderful foundation in South Africa now, which is called Mlambo, and her deep concern is about how we can give youth the tools that they need today to face the issues of population, of environment, of food scarcity, of sustainability. Phumzile was a teacher, and she had a fantastic conversation with the youth behind me as we were preparing for this session today, and I think you'll see that she brings out the best in people. Phumzile was a member of parliament. She was Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry of South Africa, and then she was Minister of Minerals and Energy. But I think that the thing she's most proud of is the work that she's done with young people today. And so hopefully we will see a little bit of that passion, I know we will, from the crowd today. So thank you so much, Phumzile. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peggy, and thanks to everybody who's come to listen to these fantastic young people this evening. We just heard earlier on this evening from people who have done a lot of exciting and interesting work in this area of environment, who for decades told and opened our eyes. That's why we probably have young people today who have the ideas that these young people have. But now we're going to hear from them. We want to hear those voices. I said to them earlier on, that they can say anything, they can be as radical as they want to be, they must just not burn the house because we've got arthritis, we can't run up fast enough the stairs. We asked them to help us ask the questions that we are not asking and give us answers where they can. Raise the bar. Make sure that we bring the linkages together. All of them sitting here are activists in their own rights, and the work that they do draws from environment, from reproductive health, from politics, and in their own world, these things are together and they must be dealt with in an integrated manner. And we'd like them to share with us how we could actually achieve that. For me and people like Peggy, in the work that we do in the Global Council, we're particularly interested in seeing the issues of reproductive health being integrated and making that connection, which we think sometimes eludes us. We have also asked them to help us and help themselves, point us in the direction that will make sure that we create the tipping point that is necessary for us to make the big push, the kind of a big push that is equivalent to the Arab Spring. We think that nothing short of a revolution will take us where we want to get to. And we don't think that we're getting there fast enough. We think that it's a stroll. It's not even a run. that we are going through. So they've got a big task ahead of them. And of course, they are also at liberty to throw some of the questions back to us in the audience. I've asked them to introduce themselves, but I'd just like to just highlight some of the things that I sort of liked about them when I spoke to them earlier on. Courtney managed to bring 10,000 young people to Washington from all over the USA. And she sat President Obama down and asked him tough questions about the environment and what she thinks he must do. Go, girl. And we have Orain, a young man who's an advocate in his own right and is very much concerned about issues of not just human rights, but also these many meetings that we've been having. His take is, it's a lot of money, but what do we have to show? This money could buy a lot of things in his world and would show results. So I think we're going to hear a little bit about that. We also going to hear Roli, who sees the complexities of inequality in India. She's seen a lot of challenges and engaged in a lot of changes in her own country, in her own short life, dealing with issues of peace, population, environment, gender issues, the works. And her take is, a country like India with so many inequalities, how could you really pick one issue above others and think that you're going to make the headway that is necessary? And I thought that was quite fascinating. And then, of course, Juan, who also works with young people and children. I think the most fascinating thing that he said today was that he was on his way to becoming a gangster, and then he was called into an ecology class, and the rest is history. So he's sitting here today. So with that as a start, I'd just like to ask all of them, and any one of them could start. We are a millennial generation, the largest generation in history. With the social and ecological challenges that we face today, how do you think we should be could tackle this? How should we be tackling that? So I'm making this open-ended. You can take your direction from there. So you want to start?
Okay. I think I'll begin. Hi, I'm Roli, as I've already been introduced, and I come from a country which has a lot of traditional knowledge. So if someone asks me that how would I like to take the step forward, then I would like to say that I would like to pick the good parts of the traditional knowledge, which includes the knowledge of the elders, but on the other hand, pick up all the zeal that the young people have, so that we say, okay, we're bringing about the change, and you, instead of being cynical and saying, okay, what next, why don't you bring about the change? So once we bought the change, you give us the rules, or rather you give us what would be sustainable for us. So I would like to say that I'm thinking about sustaining sustainability, because if we're talking about providing, I tried looking it up, the dictionary, because I thought the best way to find out what sustainability actually meant was going back to the roots. And what it said was to supply with necessities and support. I think all of us being here and me speaking about it shows that we all support certain notions. Where we, I think, lack is somewhere or the other in providing necessities, be it in the form of a small condom or be it in the form of big aid, any of the two things. But sum total, it's like it has to be a lot of linkages and a lot of bringing together of points for us to move forward and work better. That's my take.
I think the other thing with young people, I mean, we're the largest generation, we're the most diverse, we're also the most connected. So I think we're able to see what's happening around the world in a way that, 30 years ago, it was harder to see. And now we see it in an instant. And I think that is altering how we look at the world, and I think also how we look at at the issues that we work on. I mean, I am in the climate space, but I came from, advocating for higher education access. And I think, weaving that together is something that we're seeing a lot more with young people than, and honestly, we see with, I've been in a lot of space with the environmental community, and they haven't been thinking about how do we actually bring, environmental justice into this? How do we actually talk to women's organizations and labor? How do we actually work together on this? Because all of these issues are connected, and I think we're having those conversations in a way almost inherently, like we start at how do we work together, which I think is a good sign for us moving forward.
Yep.
If I may say, I think young people are passionate, and it's our passion that drives us, and that passion pushes forward a zeal. And I believe that if you can tap into that passion and that zeal, then you can overcome anything, really. I'm not saying that we are disposable, and by the time we reach 40, you should dispose of us. But what I'm saying is that you should tap into our youth, really. And at the end of the day, whatever that we do, whatever that we recommend, that's what's going to affect us in the future. So what you want to do is that you want to provide recommendations, you want to provide declarations that are going to help young people in the future. And then when they grow old and they have the gray hairs and the walking stick, then you tap into the new generation that's there. And so you will have a continuous change, and nothing will be the same. Everything, as she said, sustainability will change. It will never be the same. It will evolve, but you need to sustain it. That's what I think.
Okay, Juan? Okay.
I think in part sustainability to me means gratitude, in a sense of being grateful for the opportunities that we're handed, that we're able to sit on this panel today because of things that you've done in your past, in your youth. And the generation that came before us isn't necessarily something that's to be divided between us and them. It's, if anything, I'm really thankful for you guys, for the work that you've done leading up to this panel. 50 years ago, 60 years ago, this was unthinkable, to even, when segregation was going on, Martin Luther King, civil rights, Cesar Chavez, all these different apartheid movements, all these different movements were going on. We had absolutely no idea that this could even possibly happen. So I guess sustainability for me is being grateful for the opportunities that we have right now, recognizing those opportunities are there, and really making the best of those opportunities and taking the lessons learned from those past movements. So, yeah.
Courtney, organizing 10,000 young people is not a joke. How did you do it? And how can we take those kind of organizing skills and bring them into the issues that we're discussing today? But also highlight for us, how would you make sure that as you organize these multitudes of young people, this connection between environment, population, health, all of it is being made? I mean, how do you do it?
Yeah. Well, I think the last year and a half with the climate bill.
And maybe tell people a little bit more about your 10,000.
Okay, I can do that. Yeah. So the Energy Action. I work with the Energy Action Coalition, which is I'm the co-director, which is a coalition of almost 50 youth-led environmental and social justice organizations, from the youth arm of the Sierra Club to we have 5 environmental justice organizations that do very specific community work, shutting down coal plants on college campuses to bringing renewable energy policies at a municipal level. So that's kind of the scope of what we do. And I came into this about a year ago in June, and the tail end of the climate bill, and there was a lot of people. There was a little bit of hope, and then it crashed and burned. And then the entire environmental movement felt a Great Depression. But our folks had been organizing in communities, and we realized, all right, the federal government's not moving the way we need to. There's a lot of discontent with Barack Obama. I mean, I worked for him for 3 years. And was frustrated as well, just wanting to see him draw a line. Corporations are encroaching in our political process, and young people were just disenfranchised with the system as a whole. And we realized we need to get folks together, we need to get folks trained. And so Power Shift was actually a bringing together 10,000 young people for the largest grassroots organizing training, we're pretty sure, in history. So giving people the tools to do the work that they need to do in their communities, so we can move the ground up. Realizing we need to push at the federal level also, which is why we have been pushing, President Obama. And I think what brought people together is, one, we've there's a tremendous culture within the youth climate space that I never knew before I came in, and people physically want to build the green economy. Like they realize that our federal government's not moving at the scale that we need to and the speed that we need to, so we're going to do it, and hopefully, we know we need them to come along, but we're going to build it from the ground up. And I think, how we did it is we have 50 coalition partners, so very locally focused, organizing at the local level, getting people excited, and then realizing, why don't you come together with people, other young people that feel the same way you do around the country, to feel a part of something bigger, which I think is really the part that we need, right? Like we need to know that there's people in Kansas that are doing the same thing that I'm doing, in Tampa. And I think taking that globally, is the other key thing that we have a little bit within our movement, but in the States, we're not quite as great, which is why it's exciting to actually be hearing
just
what
a
folks are doing.
follow-up question. We need scale, and we need a long-term commitment amongst young people. Do you think young people have got that stamina to go for the long haul? And what tools do you have? I mean, you don't have power, let's face it. What tools do you have to sustain it?
I think we have power. I think we haven't used it, to be honest. I mean, we're going to be 20% of the electorate by the next election here in the States. And so I think part of it is feeling empowered. And I think, people felt a little disempowered with Barack Obama coming in. And I love Barack Obama, preface. But just, again, not putting forth the boldness that we wanted. And I think putting it back into our hands will empower folks to keep moving for the long term. And I think, the way we look at it is, it is not just about climate change. We've talked a lot about women's access to health care. That was a major component of power shift labor. And I think, again, really trying to make this a broad generational push. This is about our future, but this is about something else. And I think that's what's going to keep people, and then also connecting to each other. It's a little mushy, but it's not how I normally organize, but I think people, this is a movement, and I think thinking of it as a movement, not a campaign, is the difference. And where I think young people, we feel connected to each other, we're going to stay in it for the long term. And that's what I think we need, and that's how I think we keep it going. And also I think it's critical to have an infrastructure that allows us to keep bringing in new young people. I mean, every day, more people in college campuses shooting fish in a barrel for organizing. So
and on that note, Courtney kind of hit on something about, this is a movement. And I think it goes a little bit beyond even, climate change and global population and nature movement. There is a sense that there is a movement out there that hasn't been defined. And I think that will be the generation that will define it. And, we need to do a better picture. You talk about, do we have the stamina to go forward? I think we do if we get it better at drawing a better tomorrow, A lot of the things that the movements in the past, at least in my research that I've seen, is that they drew a better tomorrow. And right now, when we're faced with the gloom and doom scenario, there's a lot of people that are going to be, frankly, burned out. But if we're better at drawing that better tomorrow, and we're better at broadcasting that message that there is a better tomorrow, that we can do it, then I think we'll have that stamina to keep on going forward.
Orain, what? Oh, you want to follow up?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I just want to butt in and sort of join two of the dots. And the thing that goes is that when we're talking about, she said that trying and connecting all of them, we do that. But then somewhere or the other, what also goes is that when we're putting forward the message, even our past generations, all the people who are sitting here, everyone worked at some point to say, okay, we want a better tomorrow. So it's actually a sustainable movement that has been going on. It's just that each time the definition of sustainability changed. We wanted something better. We were moving a step ahead. It's just that we've still not reached the state wherein we'd like an utopian kind of a place to live in, but we're still moving towards a better tomorrow. It's just that we need to sort of hold on to that thought instead of just sort of at times giving way to it. That's when sort of showing positive stories, speaking about them, getting more and more people to know about them, not only in one place, but sharing it across the world through internet works a lot. That's what I think.
And Orain, what's going to be different? What makes you different from the traditional approach to environment and to conservation? What are you bringing that is actually new as young people of this very crucial generation?
Well, personally and first, let me say that my work in sexual reproductive health and rights And basically, for many of you, you're probably not sure what sexual reproductive health and rights is. And it's basically to have that holistic development where as a human being, you are mentally, sexually, emotionally, all the forms of ally that you can think of. Independent, strong, you are aware of your sexual identity, your sexual orientation. You are able to have good condom negotiation. You are able to provide voluntary sex. You don't have someone pushing or forcing you. You have that right. You have that freedom. So that's what sexual reproductive health and rights is for all those out there who don't know. But as a young people, as I said earlier, it's the passion that I have and the passion that we have and the different approach that we would take towards addressing the issue. I mean, traditionally, there's an approach that, children are supposed to be seen and not heard. And so there's this idea that let's just leave the young people until they grow up and, they'll address it in their time. But what we want to do is that we want to bring young people as a part of the change, as a part of championing the cause that we have, because we want to know what's affecting them, right? We want to tap into the new media that's happening, Facebook, Twitter. We want to go all across the board. We don't want to just go on the news, or we don't want to go on the radio to talk about something. We want to also tap into, as Courtney said, we're very diverse, and I think that as young people, we try to have a strong network. So when I leave here, I'm going to be friends with Courtney for a long time. I'm going to be friends with Juan for a long time. We're just here as panelists for this session. So it's that networking that we have, and it's that togetherness that we have, and it's that passion that we have to want to have a better future. As I said earlier, with sustainability, and as Roli said, you envisioned a better future for yourself, and you tried, you made all the necessary efforts to accomplish that better future. But as a young person, I see where I can enhance, that better future that you have envisioned. And so I'm going to work towards it, and as within the reality that I face and within the society, the present society that I have different challenges and different opportunities and measures that I can tap into rather than you. And so when I get older, my son, my daughter, my nephew will have different challenges, different opportunities, different avenues that he or she can tap into. So as time changes and as time progresses, you will have different things that you can use, different materials, different to utilize so that you can move forward.
Okay. Roli, if you want to organize and think outside the box as you do this work, what exactly would this entail, and how would you ensure that you bring on board the people that are older and are in a different space in terms of how they work? How do you take your outside the box thinking and take it into the mainstream?
Right. The thing is this, that generally I'm a communications person and I'm more of like filmmaking kind of a person. So my approach will be a very communications-based approach, because I honestly believe that...
Which you think is not happening now?
I think it's happening, but we still, at least in India, I know for a fact, we're still a long way away from where we would like to be.
And that's a lot of people to miss out.
Exactly. It's the second most populated place to miss out, actually. Because of the simple reason that people still consider certain things, they are, it's a reluctant acceptance to the fact that new media might be something which can be used. So, in spite of the fact that my mother might be there on Facebook, but she'll be like, is it really necessary? It's just a kid's space. So that is one thing that, I guess the Egyptian revolution tried to sort of bring down, that kind of concept. But then again, what even I got to know after speaking to a lot of the people over there, they spoke about the fact that somewhere or the other, it had been building up. So I guess that, if we sort of build up a certain thing, a time will come wherein, it'll actually tap into people's brains, wherein it'll be like, okay, it's just normal. It's going to happen, and it is a normal means. Over here, if I look at people, every second person has an iPhone which has a Facebook application open. But that might not be the case in India, because I do not see a lot of aunties and uncles going onto it and checking out, okay, what's happening, other than maybe at times to keep a track of, okay, who their daughter's seeing and how they're not seeing, kind of a thing. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I'd like to sort of pick on is that I'll take a very specific SRHR, that is sexual reproductive health rights, as well as a climate change kind of a thing. I've sort of been to one COP, and what I did realize was that people find so many things as taboos. They just do not want to encroach into other people's spaces. It's like we've made everything into sectors. We're not going to go out of our compartments, and we're not going to speak to the other sectors because of the simple reason that it's not something that we do, and it might create a controversy. We're so scared about the fact that, today what I'm speaking might come back to me tomorrow, and it might affect my reputation, my position, or whatever. And that's the reason why I will not pick it up. And I guess that works against us. Because of the simple reason, when we do not link up different things, we realize that all of us might be fighting for something, and there's a lot of effort which is going waste.
So do you think that the world has missed out the progress that we could have made because of being too specialized, one issue focused type of organizations and institutions?
Okay. The thing is this, that I just remembered something. While he was speaking, he spoke about the fact that I just thought that we're also moving as young people, when we talk about an out-of-box approach, we're trying to make a world without borders, because that's what happens. We're saying that the world is flat. We've still not accepted it completely, and we can see it in different forms of laws and stuff. But if you actually see it in the media, helps that. And when you talk about borderless worlds, then you're talking about borderless conditions. Conditions wherein one part, whatever might be happening, affects another. So climate is that kind of thing which is sort of that encompassing. And so is simple things like access to condom. I mean, I did not know that until I started researching about my COP thing, that actually speaking, population is one of the biggest contributors towards climate change problems. And still people in the climate change, conferences, and there's so many things that are happening. None of them want to pick it up as a topic. Everyone's talking about new technology. Everyone's talking about green technology, green economies. But what they're not picking up is the fact that there's a human who's being affected, but that human is not an abstract commodity. It is not an abstract concept. Population is something which is tangible. So that's my...
Okay. Courtney, what's stopping young people from making sure that the social media works for them? Because it's in their hands. They could push the movement forward, get these scales that we actually want. What are the problems? I guess part of what I'm trying to say is it's not good enough for young people to say, you may be stopping us from doing A, B, C, D. What about the things that young people can do, and they don't need adults to give them permission to do?
I like to call them the big kids. I think, seeing the revolutions that kind of took over the Middle East, I actually think was an interesting signal to Americans, at least in the sense of, okay, they're using Twitter and Facebook,
Can
which
be done.
I find out who my ex-boyfriend's dating on, So I think, we actually use it for organizing as well, but not to the scale. So I think that was an interesting eye-opener for a lot of folks. So one, I do think more people are realizing that we have access to these tools that are outside of some of the things we don't have access to, and also trying to be smarter about how we are using mainstream media. I think with Power Shift, we actually got into the media in a way we never had. Part of it was from challenging the president, but then we were able to move that message, and I think that opened our eyes to a whole new way of organizing. And then the other piece is really providing people with the tools to do the work, and feeling a sense of empowerment, which I think is hard to do in the United States. We're we're just very decentralized, which I never really realized that until I took this role of organizing on a national level. People are very isolated in the work that they're doing, and so I think the key thing that we're doing is trying to connect people through the internet in a very deliberate way, which is something that we've yet to fully do right, and I definitely think we're not there, but we're getting closer. I think Twitter is opening the door in a way that we've never really thought. I sent a tweet earlier, and all of a sudden people were responding to it, and it's just opens a whole new world. So one, I think using those tools and then continually providing people the core skills that they need of just grassroots organizing, and also understanding how we can influence the political process. I think one of the constant barriers, though, at least in the U.S., that I hear echoed in other places, is our politicians. I mean, they're corrupt, and the Bill McKibben talked about this earlier with corporate money. I mean, we are up against, in terms of the fossil fuel industry, pumps millions and millions of dollars, and so it's hard to override that with a vote. But that's what we're trying to do right now, and I think getting people to realize that we have some power that the corporations haven't actually taken complete control is what we're trying to do, at least with PowerShift.
So there's great potential amongst young people. There's great potential with technology, but you've just highlighted something: leadership. That leadership, politics, politicians. Yeah. It's part of the problem. So that's one of the things you're going to be sorting out.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we're going to hold some people accountable.
Good. We have a few minutes left because I'd like to also hear from the audience here. Just one question or contribution. If there's one thing that you'd like this conference to achieve, something that you think would provide the building blocks for the things that are dearest to you, what would that be? So just one thing from each one of you.
First of all, I think that what we need to do is that we need to open our eyes and see that development, environment, climate change is not a single approach. It's a wide approach, and we should take a more holistic approach towards it. So reproductive health and rights need to be in it. The economic approach needs to be there. The political approach needs to be there. And then from there, we gather our young people to be a part of this change, to be a part of this movement that was said. And at the end of this forum, at least have a document, some physical paper that we can say, we achieved this from this forum. And when we go to South Africa next year, we have something to put forward that we can say to President Obama, if he's in power by then, and to all the other world leaders that this is what we had at the Aspen Forum, and this is what we want, and we will not leave this conference, summit, whatever it is, unless the United States, China, Russia, France, all these G5, G7, G8 countries,
G whatever,
come together and declare that we're going to do something, and we're going to take a stand, and it ends right now.
Okay. Courtney, your one dream.
That was good. I think that we have to play to the strengths of different organizations and constituencies. I think, specifically young people have a very clear role that we get to play, and we should allow us to play that. And I think, we saw that with the climate bill. Young people were suppressed and told to be quiet and sit in a corner, and that didn't very much help. So I think being real about the way that we interact within the climate space, but then also bringing in other movements into this and making a truly cross-issue movement forward, I think is what we actually need to do.
So are you saying that the representation in age-wise of the people that are here could be enhanced? I mean, we could get better results if we enhanced the representation of young people, because we'd be bringing in, so something to think about next year.
Yeah.
That age is an important factor in the success of the work that we do.
Age, and then I think also just different issues. I mean, I think more women's organizations, LGBT community, veterans, how are we actually making this an inclusive movement forward?
All right. Okay. Orain?
Somebody answered me, how long has the Aspen Environment Forum been around? 4 years. I was looking at the website. It's a little bit discouraging to see that you guys haven't gotten quite the picture of what America looks like, at least for the United States. It still kind of hurts me a little bit to show up to places like this where I'm the only Latino, unless I know somebody. Any of it? Orale, what's up? Largest growing population in the U.S., just became the largest voting bloc in the state of California, and yet, we are here. So my encouragement for you for next year is to bring not only diversity and cultural diversity, but diversity in thought, which I think is echoed in what we're talking about right now. If we're really serious about change, if we're really serious about this cannot be a progressive movement that only caters to the elitists, to the middle class. It has to be a movement that embraces the working class, the people who are suffering, the people who the choices we make here today and the words that we're saying here today are going to affect them tomorrow. So.
So diversity, age, race, class issues must be reflected in the manner in which we compose the forum. Okay, next.
Okay, I had a request for everyone. I'm a Gandhian principle, like it's a Gandhian principle of sorts. We are the change that we want to see in the world. And each one of us, if we just today commit in our brains, I'm not asking you to write down anything, that you in your own way are going to try and include a few more young people in whatever you do. And two, if you're a part of the media or if you're a part of any kind of, how should I say, communication project, then please, please, please show some positive stories, because what I've seen is that there are so many negative stories around that everyone, I mean not only the young people but the old ones, everyone thinks that, okay, nothing's going to happen, it's just going to go worse, let's forget it. So those are two things that I want from all of you here. Please take home a commitment and decide that till next year or like whenever you want, set your own deadlines and say that you're going to try and do that. And the second thing is obviously, please try and show more positivity in whatever work that you're doing. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. On that positive note, we have a microphone over there, so we'll take a few questions. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to start here, Marissa? Okay.
And say who you are?
Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Marissa Momartz. I work for the Aspen Global Health and Development Program. And my question for you all, thank you so much for that really inspiring talk, is can you explain a little bit more the connection between sexual and reproductive health and climate change and the environment and why we need to care about it?
Okay. I'm just going to give a brief example of Haiti. And with the earthquake that happened in 2010, sorry, a lot of persons don't realize the effects of the earthquake on the sexual reproductive health and rights of women. So a lot of women were relocated, and they were relocated to makeshift camps. And within these makeshift camps, a lot of young girls were raped, a lot of young boys were raped, a lot of land, useful land, right? And we know that Haiti did not have the most lucrative economy. A lot of land that could be used for production was now used to dispose of body waste and stuff like that. And these were close by these makeshift camps. So you can see where an increase in disease would come in. You can see where newborn babies would. And first of all, let me say that since the earthquake, Haiti had an increase in their population growth, and the United States U.S. Census Bureau has reported that Haiti will have, by 2050, a 13.6, I think, or 13.7 million population growth from its 9.6 population growth, which is that right now. So since the earthquake, there have been population growth. A lot of babies have been born, and you can't just imagine the conditions that these babies were born in, and the risk that they are prone to, and the risk that their mothers are prone to. So with this, you can see how the environment, how environmental degradation, how the earthquake affects a young mother, how the earthquake will affect reproductive health and right production. And if you even go to some African states, women have to walk from miles to have contraception, to even get comprehensive sex education, how to use a condom, how to have condom negotiation. So a lot of things come into play: water usage, water access, and a lot of things like that.
Thank you. I'm going to take a few questions so that they can answer more than one question at a time. Okay, right there. Oh, okay, the microphone is over there.
My question is, we talk about a future vision of a boundaryless world, but in fact, we see the relationship between men and women, and rich and poor, and black and white, and American and foreigners, we, they. I guess my question is, I see a huge divide between youth and adults, and I work with youth a lot, and I'm in a lot of different organizations, and I just wonder if you would agree that there is a gap between youth. I think when we segregate youth, and even we talk about the youth, we further create a boundary. Question is, do you think that there is a youth-adult divide, and if so, how can we bridge that divide?
Okay. Take next question.
if you could just share the one thing that got you on your path. What was that hope, despair, whatever the event that made you change what you were doing and where you went today?
There's a hand over there. And the one behind. And at the back.
What will let you on your path?
Do you have one, Mike?
I'm wondering what, as you do your work, what sort of support or what is it that you want from us that are your elders?
Okay. What do you want? That's a nice question. Okay.
We got
Yeah, I run a foundation here in the Valley, and it's a very real thing for me. I want to talk about money. So I'd like to hear your comments on how you fundraise, if your organization is self-sufficient. Is it foundation supported? Is it donor supported? What are some of the limitations of being a youth activist in your respective fields in regards to money?
Okay. Right here in front. And over here.
Hey, Josh Dorfman with a company called Good Guide. I was here a few years ago and sat in on a panel for a conversation about our Cato Fellows, those who are brought here who are mid-career, who are environmental leaders. And someone in the audience asked the question of, the same thing came up, sort of the bottleneck or what's holding the movement back are our political system, our political leaders. And this guy was a former senator. He was sitting in the office and he said, in the room, and he said to these leaders, okay, since you think the most important thing to do is influence the political system, and they've also had told a woman on scholarship that she should vote in order to participate in the system and influence change, he asked them how many of them would be willing to run for office. And if you think about city councils or even Congress, where the age to run is 25, city councils, sometimes it's 21. I'm curious for the organizations and folks and youth in your organizations, how many people think about actually stepping up and entering office?
Okay. Can I just ask them to answer, then we'll take the next round? Please, don't okay.
Him.
Okay, I've written down all the 6 questions, and actually, I'd like to answer all of them. So,
you have to share. You have to share.
Okay, so the first thing that goes is that yes, I do think there's a gap. In India, trust me, half the people do not recognize a young population. They just like to believe the fact that there are kids and then there are adults. There's nothing in between. Then I'm going to go to my favorite question in the end. What do you want? Well, I want so many things, but when we're specifically asking for support, when I think back of the time when I was 16 or 18 or even 20, my basic question was what we generally like to raise is, how do we bring about the change? So actually speaking, are organizations working enough to sort of tell the youths that, okay, we're here to help you and to take you in so that you can bring about the change? Rather than letting them just sit, be frustrated, unemployed also at times, such that they go forward and then they have questions like, look, it doesn't really happen, let's just
inclusion.
work in our own. Yeah,
inclusion is what you're crying for, inclusion of young people.
So that's there.
I'm going to let someone else take another question. Yeah. Courtney or Juan?
Yeah, so hard, right? I would say access is the one thing that I want from this group. If I'm to create the change, I need the access to the funders, to the people that are sending out the message out there. I need to be able to sit down with the Bill McKibbins of this. It shouldn't take us 3 years to get a meeting with the president. And that was a surprise visit. It shouldn't take us that long to be able to sit down and lay out our issues. That's the one thing we want. And I believe that in this room, there's enough capacity for access to be provided to the younger generation. It doesn't even necessarily have to be us, within your own organization. Money-wise, we found a trifecta, I think, at least for my organization, the Children in Nature Network, and we're still struggling. It's not sustainable. But if you're able to mix the nonprofit, the corporations, and the government agencies, and be able to broadcast that they're all working together and simultaneously, then that is a movement. And that makes it much more attractable to the funding mechanisms that are out there. As for why I got involved, I was up to the age of 15, my highest expectation in life was becoming a gang member. And it's not because I idolized them, it's because they were the ones that were able to pay the bills and feed their family at the end of the day. And it wasn't until I was in detention at science class for doing something dumb that, you know, the teacher said, gave me an ultimatum. She said, either you go to Eco Club or you're gonna fail class, and you're not gonna pass this. And from that, I mean, the one thing that kept me connected was nature, movement, all that stuff. Got to Teton Science Schools out here in the Grand Teton National Park, saw more stars than I could count for the first time. And that just made me realize that I'm connected to something much bigger than myself, much bigger than the South Central LA, but still bringing that back to my community, and hence why I've made a commitment to that community.
Much bigger than the gang. Courtney? Any of the other questions?
Yeah, I think in the running for office, there's actually, in the last year, I know 4 friends that I worked on the Obama campaign with that have run for office and have won, which I never knew anyone that ran for office before that, which is awesome. Yes, I think that's amazing. They're all under 30, maybe 35. And there's a growing movement. I mean, last week, 2 different organizations that are working to run young, progressive people to office are moving and forming. So that's very much a thought process of realizing if we're going to actually change the political system, we need to change the people that are in the system. I'm actually, as well, recently entertaining the concept of maybe one day running for office, which
Good.
always against a lot, but now think it's the way to do it. I think in terms of money, I know we are completely funded on foundations. We just brought 10,000 young people and have no money to keep organizing them. So that, I think, is an interesting cycle that we continually function in, is, you know, inconsistent money, but we can do a lot with a little money, I think, is something that youth orgs do really well.
It's amazing that there's a people who've got lots of money than you have who can't even bring 100 people to Washington.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm afraid I'm going to have to give the people whose hands have been up for a really long time, someone here and the lady here, and then I'm afraid we have to close. Okay.
Gang He from China. I'm surprised that there's no voice from China. If time available, I'd like to share more perspectives from China.
Yeah.
But I want to ask questions first.
Do both.
Okay. Question first. Can you demonstrate that how you guys, let's say, can really work together in the future? That would be a really interesting question for you to think about. That's my question.
I like it.
My comments would be, since we are talking about sustainability, I would like to share 2 quick phrases in the Chinese traditional wisdom, how we think about sustainability. It's very simple. The first phrase is if you want the egg, don't kill the hen. And if you want the eggs, don't kill the hen. And the second phrase is, don't dry up the pool to harvest the fish. So that's how we think about sustainability in the Chinese culture. I have some more comments on how we can achieve sustainability. Since I'd like to share 4 I's. First, I is integration, as you also shared that we need to think about holistically. And second I is interdisciplinary, especially for when we think about climate, environment issues. No single discipline will solve that. And the third I would say, is innovation. Innovative tools, innovative ideas, we do need to think about that. And the fourth I is internationalization. Internationalization, because it's a global problem. We need think it globally. That's my comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My name's Saren Yader-Wallace, and I was wondering, Courtney, how you got to where you are now, like getting all those people to just volunteer and everything. Like, I'm about to go into college, and I was just wondering, is that where you went after college, and how'd you get there?
So I grew up in Arizona in the suburbs of Phoenix, Scottsdale to be precise. Not a rich person, rich people around me. And people thought I was radical for talking about recycling. Let's just put the trash in a different bin, folks. And so I went to Oregon, which cultivated my soul, and where I learned that that community organizing is a thing you can do, that you actually can get paid a little to save the world. We joked about that earlier. Paid a little, just a little. So that's, I think, that opened my eyes that I could do that. I didn't realize that was something I could do. I thought you had to change the laws to change the system, which I still think you need to do, but I think to change the laws, you need to organize the people a little bit. So that's what brought me here, and I think, well, that's more of a story than that, obviously. But and then I did student organizing in Oregon, and then at a national level, organizing people to move to turn out to vote. Actually, so I have a strong belief that you actually, we're trying to move our entire movement into voting, which is not something that the environmental movement often functions in, and especially the youth climate space in the States. So we're shifting that. And then worked on the Obama campaign, which was an incredible experience. And then in the White House, which totally shifted how I think of power. And also that I think I can do it, to be honest. Like working there is when I realized...
You can be the president.
Well, that I can... Maybe I can be the president. But that I can change, that I actually know what I'm saying. Like I know what I'm talking about. Which, as a young person, I often don't feel like I know what I'm talking about. And I mean, I'm by no means a policy expert, but... I know enough about the issues, enough about what I want, that I need to be able to express it. And I think that's how, feeling okay that's enough to be in a room is something that young people need to feel. And so I encourage, as you get involved in school, and check out everything. I think that's what I did. I tried different orgs, I begged student government to take me and they wouldn't. No one called me back on my recruitment card. So, as I lose my mic and my shirt, awkward. Sorry about that. So I think just getting involved in college and finding organizations and staying active and pushing it is the way to do it. And that there are organizations you can work for and get paid to save the world, which I didn't know. So
good. Well, you really.
You can take a couple more questions.
Okay.
Hi, Eric Cephas with Catamount Institute in Colorado Springs. A lot of times when I do my talk, I talk about we look at the health and well-being of our planet as it relates back to the health and well-being of our youth. ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, diabetes, autism, leukemia rates, infant mortality rates. All these things are not only on the rise, they're going through the roof. So getting back to the population growth, everything else directly correlates with how we're looking at the health and well-being of our planet. Somebody made the comment about tying back. I'm a very youthful 44-year-old. My wife is still waiting for me to hit maturity level at some point in my life. I'm an engineer turned sales guy turned executive director of a nonprofit. Every single action I do is to leave the world a better place for my two children, my 6-year-old and my 10-year-old. So as an adult, I encourage everyone here, I have a full commitment and I will do whatever I have to do to make sure my children are supportive, successful, and I'm going to make the commitment to every one of you that everything that I will do will support your success.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to take concluding remarks from the team.
If I may say, I implore you all to tap into your youth resource. Honestly, we don't have anything to fear. We don't have a job to lose. We don't have, say, a political reputation, and there's no stakes for us. So tap into your youth resources and have them to come forward. And as I said before, the passion is there. A lot of adults would not want to go and say, Obama, you need to do this. Or, for instance, back home, I can call on my prime minister. For instance, back home, homosexuality is illegal back home. And we have the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network, we have a Facebook page, and we speak openly about it. A lot of politicians don't want to talk about it, but we have nothing to lose. We're young, we're free, we are going to put it out there, we're going to put it in your face. So please, guys, I implore y'all to tap into your youth resources and, you know, have them, put them at the forefront and empower them as you go along and as they go along.
And I would just say, I think, you know, we have to work together. I think we've said this repeatedly, but just to and we're not trying, I think Glenn Beck after Power Shift said that we were trying to tell our 10,000 people to go kill their parents. It's really great, actually, really great extrapolation. I think, you know, we have to work together, and I think it's just being very clear about what our role is in movements, you know, and in spaces, and that bring us to the table and then realize, yeah, our role is a little different, but that's okay. You know, that's important. And also leadership development. I think, you know, we need to be thinking of who's replacing you in your organizations and then some. So,
thank you. Juan?
So I'm very honored. You heard a little bit of my story, and in this month's issue of National Geographic, I'm one of the 2011 Emerging Explorers for them. So those two paradoxes coming up from South Central, where there were days when I didn't know where my food was coming from, and to be, you know, part of such an institution like National Geographic, you know, it just goes to show that, you know, my story is but one story of stories that are out there. There's still many people that we're not reaching because we don't have the right messaging to do that. And as long as we keep on being talking on the table and talking about how we're going to do this, we need to get those people involved in these solutions. You'd be amazed at how many solutions you can find out there. I consider myself a facilitator of solutions. I don't have all the answers for my community. I don't pretend that I'm speaking for the Latino community in its entirety. But if we're able to get those people together, we'll be able to make a better movement in the future.
I'm just going to repeat a lot of what others have said, but then I'd again like to re-emphasize innovative movements, because honestly, innovation is something which is needed. The more newer a thing is, the more people like to join it. The second thing is, it's a fact. And the second thing that goes is, I guess, linkages. It's very important that we just please stop organizationalizing everything. And that's like a new term that I've just picked up. Maybe it's not there in a dictionary, but we need to break those barriers which say, okay, this is the only work that I do and this is the only thing that I'll ever do. That's not the case, and that's not how we work. And yeah, obviously, youth should be involved. So all three should be there.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Just to highlight on my side, I think what I heard a lot, the issue of inclusion. I think that when we have young people crying out for inclusion, it's the most positive message we can hear. I guess our homework as the older people is just to figure out how we tap into this energy. But then even then, they're coming forward with suggestions about how we could actually do that. I think the issue of not compartmentalizing the issues, having an integrated approach, being inclusive and representative in the things that we do, something that is very strong, that will enable us to tap to a lot of people that are doing different things, if all brought together, will give us the results that we want. I guess the importance of having a positive message, that as we warn people about the challenges ahead, we must not forget to also flight positive messages so that people are not exhausted about gloom and doom. They actually know that some things work, and even in particular that they themselves can do something. There was a question there about, you know, are you guys going to stick together? I think that there is a plan that Marisa and myself, we've been caucusing about, which helped us to bring together this panel, that we would love them to stay together and connect other young people, because as they're saying, the media today allows us to do that. And we hope that we'll be engaging them before the end of this week so that we could actually work on something that we could take forward, so that this was not a one shot. It's something that is going to be sustainable. So thank you so much for the evening.
And before we all head out for the evening, just a few housekeeping notes. First of all, we'd like to thank you all for a powerful